Okay, go for it, Tim.
Sure. All right. So hi, everyone. We are going to be doing a class on remote video options. As you know, with the pandemic, things like Zoom and Google Meet and all that fun stuff has kind of been more present, and everyone has been doing more and more of it. So it's not uncommon to conduct a business meeting using Zoom or some other sort of software that facilitates connection, like even a video conference. One thing we're going to try for this class is closed captioning. The closed captioning is going to be, so we are going to
All right.
We have Deb Ames.
Yeah, Deb, can you mute?
I'm having trouble. I can't get on my computer.
Oh, so you're on a phone?
But it's muted. So why am I getting an echo? Do I have to turn my computer off? Or?
All right. Well, we should be good as long as it doesn't reverb like that.
Right. Yeah.
But this is going to be a class on remote video options from the Peterborough Library, and we're going to go through some of the more generally accepted ways to do it. So we're going to go over Google Meet, we're going to go over Jira or Jitra, I always forget how to pronounce it, Zoom, and we're going to talk about some phone options as well. If Mary has your email, you'll get a link to both the slides and the recording of this. If you have the slides, this class will be updated as it progresses. So if you look at it in 6 months, there may be some new information on it, and you can kind of make sure that it's always up to date by just checking the slides. The other thing the slides are useful for is you'll be able to kind of come back and maybe it'll jog your memory as to something you're trying to remember whenever you're doing this for yourself. We will have a second class after this one based on what people want to learn more about. So the main thing this class is going to do is it will go over the different options, and then the second class will go a deep dive into one of the options and kind of show you everything from start to finish and all the different things you can do when either hosting a meeting or being a participant in a meeting. I will say that at the start, Zoom is the biggest, so that's the one we're going to be focusing more attention on, but I'd be remiss if we didn't go over some of the other options. So as stated earlier, Zoom is the big boy. If anyone wants to have a question or has a question or wants to just say anything in general, you can always raise your hand in Zoom, or we'll have momentary pauses throughout for people to ask questions. And you can also always write it in the chat. And I do have the chat window popped up on my screen. Mary does as well. So if you type something in chat, we'll kind of try to slide it into the flow of the presentation without too much disturbance. And definitely feel free to ask any question you have. This class isn't for me to just espouse what I know. It's always better to hear what other people have questions on, or if you have any corrections or anything you think would be useful to the overall conversation, feel free to let us know.
Great, thank you, Tim.
Yep.
And before we start, can everyone turn their video off as well, just so that it doesn't get caught in the recording by mistake? Thanks. All right, go for it.
Perfect. So just again, we do have the closed captioning on. Feel free to look at it. It may or may not be correct. My voice is generally pretty good at being picked up, as evidenced by me reading what I'm saying, which makes it surprisingly difficult to continue talking. So I'm going to ignore that. But yeah, also let us know if closed captioning is something you'd like in the future, because it's something we can look to provide. All right, so Zoom is very popular with schools and businesses. one of the biggest factors in why Zoom is popular is it has a lot of options. So while this may make it really good for in like a classroom setting or in a corporate setting, sometimes less is more, and you don't actually need all of these options. One of the best ways I can describe this is if you were a teacher at the start of school and your classroom uses Google's applications, oftentimes teachers would still use Zoom. And the reason for that, or one of the reasons, was initially YouTube didn't have breakout rooms. And a breakout room is where you're able to take a bunch of people and you're able to split them up into different groups within the same meeting and talk. Am I correct that Google Meet is always free and Zoom is free only during the pandemic? That's a great question. Google Meet is always free with an asterisk, and Zoom is always free with an asterisk. So basically, Zoom has a free option and Google Meet has a free option. If you are using Zoom, it is essentially free for 40 minutes, no matter how you want to use it. And after the 40-minute time cap, it will shut off the meeting. Of course, then you can just go make a new meeting and pick up right where you left off, but that can be annoying. One of the things you get whenever you go to the higher level of Zoom is you do get more options, more security features, and more stuff in general. If you are trying to meet with only one other person, Zoom doesn't really have any limitations. For Google Meet, you have the base functionality of Meet completely free as long as you have a Google account, but there are some enterprise features that you only have if you have G Suite or you have an enterprise license. We're not going to go into those features, but that's more geared towards education and larger corporate clients, where Google has been furiously adding features in order to kind of catch up with Zoom. The next question was, is there a way to turn off closed captioning on my screen? Unfortunately not. One of the fun things is this is the largest font closed captioning is available on, so I tried to make it the most blatant and annoying as possible so everyone can read it.
Thank you, Tim.
No problem. Why do I have no problems on Zooms, but some, like the Hancock meeting, I have a terrible time with being heard even when I shut off video? That's a great question. We're going to go over some of the limitations of video conferencing near the end. So in this Zoom window, or in this slide, which you'll have access to after the presentation, the first one is just Zoom's own support article of how to join a meeting. I will at the end kind of show you how I would search for help on Zoom. And the Zoom support page is a wonderful source of information. And it's also, in my opinion, very easy to read and very easy to follow along. The next one is just more of an article about Zoom. And the third one is a YouTube video on how to start a meeting, join a meeting, all that fun stuff. And I believe it's also produced by Zoom, and it's wonderfully straightforward.
Great.
One of the fun things with Zoom is whenever you're trying to teach Zoom is you can't use Zoom to show Zoom. If you are trying to share your screen and you're trying to show something to do with Zoom, I realize I'm saying Zoom a lot, but Zoom will hide your application of Zoom that's running from the screen sharing. So what we've done is we have a bunch of pictures. These pictures were lovingly created by Mary a little while ago, and I double checked and they're still all up to date. The Zoom interface hasn't changed since these were created. So at the top right, it's the join a meeting window. So this is how you would join a Zoom meeting. You can either type or copy paste your meeting ID into the box and hit join, or you can just click on the link and Zoom will automatically start. If the meeting has a password, you would put in the password, and then you would end up with a screen to the top left where it says, please wait for the host to start.
Exactly.
What will happen next whenever you join a meeting is it will ask you, how do you want to connect to audio? If you look on the left, there is a screen and it says phone call to the left and computer audio to the right. If you have a laptop, but you would rather have your phone be the one that you can listen and talk to, then you can click phone call. So you're able to both watch the presentation on your laptop and interact with your phone. But either way, you would hit join. In this case, we would hit join with computer audio. Once you hit that, you would want to make sure that your microphone and video camera are working. And right below the join with computer audio, you can see it says test speaker and microphone. So you can always hit that button and a little test prompt would pop up, which would allow you to test that. On the right, we can see the phone call options, and these are just the numbers that you would dial on your phone to connect to the Zoom meeting. Once you are in the Zoom meeting, if you click in the bottom left, there will be a microphone icon. If you just click on the icon, it will mute and unmute yourself. So this is really useful if you have background noise or if you're in a setting like this where there's a lot of people and you just don't want to accidentally cough and everyone hear it. So you can mute yourself in that way. And if you mute yourself, you can always hold in your space bar and it will automatically unmute you long enough for you to talk. If you click on the little up arrow, which we have selected, a bigger menu option will pop out where you can select your microphone and select your speaker. This is primarily useful if you have multiple speakers or microphones in use. So not something everyone's going to deal with. And directly to the right of the mute icon, you can see the video option. It says start video with a little red diagonal line through the video icon that shows that we're not having any video. If you have any audio or video problems, you can go into the menu, which is the little gear icon, and you can click on audio, and this is what the audio settings look like. I'm going to skip over it, but if you have any questions about that, you can ask at the end, and we can definitely go back over some of these slides in greater detail. How do you copy all the comments made on that particular Zoom? So if you are referencing everything that's in this chat, you're able to do a couple of things. One, you can just copy and paste it. And two, if you are the meeting host, whenever you have the option to download the meeting after the meeting is concluded, you will have access to all of the chats. One of the fun things about this, and one thing that students apparently still don't realize, is even if you private chat someone, the teacher will get a copy of that at the end of the class whenever the meeting is over. So if a student is goofing off with one of their friends, at the end of the meeting, the teacher will have a chat transcript of what they were saying. So just be careful, private chat doesn't mean it's private, which is slightly amusing to me. If you see on this slide, it's the video options. Generally, you don't want to mess around with this too much. But if someone is complaining that your video isn't great, or if you realize that your video isn't great, under My Video, make sure the check mark for Enable HD is selected. Now, consequently, if your video is working, but it's kind of like choppy, and your audio is working, but it's kind of choppy, one of the first things you want to do is go into this menu and deselect Enable HD, because what that will do is it will lower the amount of internet Zoom is using, which will hopefully help with the audio and visual for you to view people and listen to people.
And I'm a big believer in touch up my appearance personally.
Oh, of course. And again, touch up my appearance. It will take a little more bandwidth, but honestly, I've never noticed it cause an issue. These are just more video options. If you have any questions about it, we can go back over it at the end. This is how to chat. So this is if you select the everyone in the bottom right, and you can try it right now, but you'll be able to select an individual person to send it to or everyone in the meeting. And again, if you send it to someone specific, even though it says it's a private chat, the creator and the host of the meeting will get all of the chat at the end. If you look at the next slide, participants 1, 2 people are waiting. This is what happens if you are the host and you have the waiting room turned on. Essentially, whenever someone joins the meeting, there will be a no man's land that they get stuck in until you let them into the meeting. The benefits of this are, if you remember at the beginning when Zoom started to get popular, I believe it was called Zoom bombing, but people would basically jump into random meetings and take them over and show, negative images or just blare loud music and just generally disrupt them. What the waiting room allows you to do as the host is make sure that only people who you recognize are allowed in the meeting.
Exactly. Tim, there's a question about how to save chats. Can you explain that a little more clearly?
Yeah, so if you are the host and or creator, how do you save the chats? It's automatically saved. So if you are recording the meeting, at the end, you can log into your account online and you can download the chat transcript. And I can show you where that's located at the end.
Great, thank you.
This next slide is just some of the general options the host has. And the host can just mute whoever they want. So if there's barking in the background or a baby is crying on someone's connection and they don't shut it off, you can always just go in as the host and mute it. And then you can always allow them to unmute it if they need to speak. The other thing this is useful for is if you are in a large meeting where multiple people would want to talk at once, instead of everyone doing that weird thing where they start, stop whenever someone else is trying to talk, because everyone's polite, you can just mute everybody and then unmute people selectively to allow people to engage in the conversation. For screen sharing, if you are the host, you are always able to screen share. And as the host, you can always delegate how many people can screen share at a time and who can screen share. And this is just one of the options that you can see whenever you're trying to set that up. This is what happens if you right-click on a participant in the video conference. You can make them host, make them co-host, allow them to record. For some reason, you can rename them, and you can also kick them back to the waiting room.
One thing, if you do, rather than putting them in the waiting room, if you remove them, they cannot come back in. So if you've got someone who is Zoom bombing, you want to click remove because then they cannot come back in. Not that that's ever happened at the Peterborough Town Library.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think it has.
No, not yet.
Yeah, there's a first time for everything. All right, and then this is the end meeting option. So if you are the Zoom, if you are the creator, you have two options. You can either leave meeting or end meeting for all. Basically what this means is if you want to leave the meeting, but you still want other people to be allowed to be in the meeting and the meeting to continue on without you, you can just hit the leave meeting button. If this is the end of the meeting and you want to kick everyone off, you can hit end meeting for all, and then Zoom will close on their computers and they will have to join a new meeting to continue their conversation.
Great.
Are people not aware of how to let you speak? I've wanted to Q&A, but not able to put myself on speaker. Couldn't do it, and the woman opened for us to speak. So, Mary, I believe Mary can answer that question.
Right. I think what's happening is you've been muted, and the person who's running the meeting can unmute you so that you can speak, and that's what's going on. In certain meetings, you cannot unmute yourself. You have to be unmuted by the host. So.
And you can also kind of send a ping to the host to ask them to unmute you.
Yes.
Because sometimes people will forget, like me. I'll forget that if I have someone muted, they can't unmute themselves until I allow them to. And
in one way to do that is you can raise your hand, which I don't think we actually showed that in these slides, but there's a way just to raise your hand so that the host can see that you want to speak.
Yep. Doesn't Zoom have a presentation format that only has a camera on certain folks, like the school board meetings? Correct. So Zoom is definitely the most full-featured option we have in this list. And when you're setting up a meeting, you can set it to only allow certain people to have cameras, and you can also do that during the meeting. So for example, one of the things the select board does for their meetings is we'll have multiple participants, but only the people who are going to be talking have access to their video. So one of the things that allows us to do is condense the number of people on the screen so you can see everyone more clearly, and it will hide all the other participants so they can still talk and listen, but they can't actually show their face. Would our video need to be on in order for you to see a raised hand? I do not believe video needs to be on to see a raised hand.
No, it doesn't.
Yep. All right. Do you use Gmail? So basically, Google Meet, it's free. I'm also slightly worried that it's switching between MEET and MEAT, but Google Meet is free if you have a Gmail account. A Google account is free, so it is free. It is less full-featured than Zoom, but it has the side benefit of being really, really simple, and I'll definitely go over that at the end. Google Meet is still transitioning away from Hangouts to Meet, but there's absolutely no reason to use Hangouts, so we can ignore it. I have two links on this page. One is the meet.google.com web address. This is just where you can go to start the meeting, and it's an incredibly simple setup, and we'll go over that in a little bit. And the second one is kind of a blog post by Google trying to explain their roadmap with what people can and can't do with Google Meet versus some of the other applications. Now, in the past, if you were in this class that we did last year, I made a statement that said, whenever I was doing all of my testing, I found that Zoom had a better image quality than Google Meet. And that was in part because I apparently did not know about this option. If you click on your video settings in Google Meet, you have two options or three options. The first one is to choose your camera. The second one is to set your send resolution and your receive resolution. What this means is if your internet connection isn't great, or if Google just decides that it wants to lower the quality of your video, it will lower the quality of the video. What you can do is you can change it from auto to a higher number, like 720. The higher the number, the more clear your image is going to be. So if you select send resolution to the maximum, then your video from your video camera is going to be the best it can be. If you set the receive resolution to maximum, all the other people's video that you're viewing will be the best it can be. So if you want clearer video, you want to set these manually to the highest available. My work laptop does not have a Google account. If I get a Google Meet invite on that laptop, can I join the meeting, or do I have to transfer the invite to my personal Google Pixelbook? So if you get a Google Meet invite, you can just click on it and it will automatically bring you into it. And if you are signed in, or if you log in with your Google account, then it will have your name. If you don't, then it will ask you to basically tell who you are, and it will still let you in. So on your work laptop, you can still use Google Meet, and you can even sign in to the meeting with your personal account if you want it to kind of be integrated in that manner. The next option we're going to go over is FaceTime. FaceTime is a bit unique because it is only available on certain devices. Zoom and Google Meet are available on your iPhone, your iPad, your Windows computer, your Mac computer. It is also available on pretty much any Android system. It's just available everywhere. Google Meet and Zoom are both the same in that respect. FaceTime is only available on Mac devices. What this means is that if you want to use FaceTime, everyone who's going to be using FaceTime either needs to have a Mac computer or an iPhone, which is slightly unfortunate because it's a very good option. In this slide, we have a quick video of how to use FaceTime. It's incredibly short and very easy to understand, but the main negative with FaceTime is you're only able to use it on Apple devices. One of the additions we've made to this class is we're going to briefly talk about WhatsApp, Signal, and Telegram, mainly because WhatsApp has been in the news recently. These are primarily built to use your phone. So if you are joining a meeting or you want to have a meeting or just a conference call with a bunch of friends on your phone, these are all good options.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go over this in a little bit, but WhatsApp is made for the phone. Signal and Telegram both are also useful or able to be used on computers. So if you want a bigger screen, you can use Signal and Telegram on your computer as well. Now, the reason WhatsApp is in the news is Apple recently essentially forced applications to show what data they are collecting or using from your device. So if you notice, WhatsApp takes device ID, user ID, advertising data, purchase history, course location, so like rough location, phone number, email address, contacts, product interaction, crash data, performance data, other diagnostic data, payment info, customer support, product interaction, other user content. That's a lot. If I'm making a phone call or making a meeting or joining a meeting, I don't feel like the application WhatsApp really needs to know my payment info, but that's just me. On the left-hand side, you can see Signal and Telegram. Signal allegedly takes no data except for your phone number. Telegram uses contact info, contacts, and user ID. So really, there's no reason not to use Signal, right? Well, the negative thing with Signal is other people have to be using Signal. So it's kind of like a Facebook situation where, maybe half of the people who use Facebook hate it, but there really isn't a good alternative because first of all, you need to get all of your friends to switch over. And if your friends are going to switch over, they would also need to get all of their friends to switch over because otherwise you would just be going back to WhatsApp because everyone's on it anyway. So that's mainly the main negative. The other issue I personally have with Signal is if you install it on your phone, and you allow it, it will take over your messaging app. So this is where you do your text messages. Now, there is nothing wrong with that, but because of the way it's encrypted, it then does not give you the ability to download your messages and kind of back them up just as a security feature. So if you have questions about that, feel free to ask, but that's really one of the downsides with Signal, besides just trying to get everyone else to use it. Here's a quick comparison, WhatsApp, Signal, and Telegram. WhatsApp, owned by Facebook, default end-to-end encryption. That is good. And it is a single device application, so it just works on your phones. Signal, it is a non-profit company, which I think is interesting in this day and age. It has default end-to-end encryption, which is good. It was created by someone named Moxie, and then Brian Acton, who was one of the creators of WhatsApp. When WhatsApp was bought, he left and kind of got Signal, helped get Signal more recognition. And it's multi-device, which means phone, tablet, computer, it'll work on all of them. Telegram is a private company, which is both good and bad. The bad news is it doesn't really allow independent security audits. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And one of the main negatives with Telegram is something called secret chat. So with the other two, WhatsApp and Signal, you can see that it has default end-to-end encryption turned on. If you want me to explain what end-to-end encryption is, let me know. But basically, end-to-end encryption is good. Telegram only has end-to-end encryption in its secret chat, which is not the default. So any chat you make is not necessarily as private as it would be on WhatsApp or Signal. Telegram was also financed by a Russian billionaire. So if you don't like to support Russian billionaires, don't use Telegram. And it is multi-device. So you can use it on your phone, tablet, desktop, laptop, all that fun stuff. So the last one is Jitsi. So if you like open source stuff, so not a huge corporation kind of thing, Jitsi would be the thing you should choose. Jitsi is fairly robust. It has very similar options to Zoom. So it has less options than Zoom, more options than Google Meet. It is free to use. I have two links. One is the jitsi.org homepage, kind of explaining what it is. And the second one is one of my favorite reviewing sites, which is Wirecutter, recently bought by the New York Times, where they put it as one of the better video conferencing applications. So if you want to read someone else's review of it, feel free to click on that link and you can kind of go through it at your own time.
Wow. That's a
So, yeah.
lot of really good information, Jim.
Oh, it's a lot of just hard-packed information. So basically, I wanted to get through that because we have a solid, 25 minutes left if we want to make this an hour class. And I felt that should give enough time to kind of go over any particular question or statement anyone wanted to make that we can kind of discuss further.
Exactly. So you can either put your question in chat or we can unmute and manage questions that way. We also, we can talk about this now, but I will also send an email out to everyone who's signed up for this course but couldn't attend, because the follow-up is a more in-depth look at one or possibly two of these options. And so we need to think about what people are most interested in learning more about. So,
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So,
and I mean, while people are maybe formulating questions, I'm going to quickly go and kind of show Jitsi.
Great.
And some of the options in Zoom. So I'll just be talking. If someone wants to break in, feel free. Okay, so we have a question. How do you
Yeah,
get the entire
Tim,
screen?
Hi,
I'm just gonna
Tim.
I'm just gonna go through the chat first. How do you get the entire screen for the presentation with no photos?
I think they mean the participant screens is what.
Oh, okay. So like make everyone's faces huge.
Or make them go away so that you just see the screen and you don't see.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there will be a little minus button where you can click on that and it will minimize it. It won't completely remove it, but it should kind of accordion it back into that one thin bar on Zoom at least.
Does that answer your question, Bob? Anyway.
I have a question about recording meetings. If that is too in-depth for today, I'll look at the next date. Recording meetings, no problem. Basically, one of the fun things with Zoom is I am unable to show you Zoom. I'm going to see if we have a image with, nope, okay.
No, we don't.
So if you can see my, my cursor, in the top left, there's an eye and a little shield icon. There will also be a little record option. As long as on the bottom, there's a record button. If you click record, the top left will start to say recording in progress or recording or something to that effect. And this will also turn red. If you have that turned on, you are now recording the meeting. If you want to get the meeting, whenever you hit record, there are two options. One option is record to cloud and record to this computer. If you record to this computer at the end of the meeting, it will automatically put it in your downloads folder or in your video folder, depending on what you have set as default. And if you tell it to go in the cloud, you can go to zoom.com or zoom.us, sign in, go to meetings, or sorry, go to recordings. And in cloud recordings, it will show you what recordings you have. Yeah, what recordings you have, and then you can download. You can download just the audio, you can download just the chat, and you can download the video.
And as far as local recordings go, one thing I learned the hard way, stop the recording before you end the meeting. Because otherwise you don't get, it doesn't populate.
And the follow-up to that was, if you record locally, can you email it to people? Kind of, not really in the strictest sense of email. So I have 3 meetings that I just downloaded. They range from half an hour to, I believe it was 3 hours. And they are, the smallest one is 198 megabytes. That is unfortunately larger than most emails will allow you to attach. If you record it in the cloud, you can send people a link where they can view it. If you record it to your computer, you can then upload it to, for example, your Google Drive, and then share it that way with a link. What about Microsoft Teams? I absolutely love Microsoft Teams. Some people don't agree with me, but they are fantastic at copying others, and their feature set has been growing every day. I find the video quality and the audio quality to be great. The main negative thing with Teams is you generally have to pay money or have like an E2 licensing, E2 or E3, to kind of get the most out of Teams. So I like it. It's very similar to Zoom. It's more similar to Zoom. It has, you know, effects that you can put on yourself. It allows you to blur the background behind you, all that fun stuff. And it's integrated with your Microsoft account. So it's very easy to share and collaborate on documents, or if you use OneNote, you can kind of get that going over the course of a meeting, and you can attach the OneNote or Word document to the meeting so you can search it later. Yeah, so I have good things to say about Teams, but definitely if people want to learn more about that, I can do it. It's just not one of the requested ones we've had.
Exactly. So there's a question about what we're going to go deep into next week. But are there any more questions about the material that Tim has presented today? Feel free to unmute yourself or type it in the chat, whichever's easiest. Okay.
This is Kath.
Mhm.
I wanted clarity on the question, excuse me, I had on Q&A, and I want to explain what I was asking for to get the clarity. And then I had one general question on when I asked Q&A on an astronomy Zoom, they tell me go ahead, and I typed it in and they wanted me to talk about it. And they said, oh, well, I wasn't coming on, so I didn't get to, even though asked to do it. But then on Saturday, I was on another Zoom and she realized that she couldn't hear me when she told me to speak. So she made me part of the presenters so I could speak. So is it just that people aren't aware that they have to get us out of silence?
Yeah, I mean, one of the ways I would answer that is you're in a meeting right now. Mary's the host. It's working great. Mary did have to allow you to unmute yourself. So Zoom definitely has the capability. So I'm fairly certain it was something on their end that was causing the issue because you're sounding fine right now.
Yeah, I say I wasn't able, they were very interested in my question, but I couldn't pursue into detail of it. And the other general thing I had for you, Tim, is you were whizzing through this stuff because you understand it all. And earlier in today's presentation, you were saying, well, go do this, go do that. Will you be going through more specifics on the next program?
Oh yeah, on the next program, and that'll kind of answer one of the questions in chat as well, is we're going to be spending, if you guys want, up to a full hour and a half. I know, don't get too excited, but we'll be going as long as you guys want. I have an hour and a half booked for each of these classes, and I'll bring some herbal tea so I can keep up my voice, and we can kind of go over every single detail on one of these solutions, and the way we will choose one of the solutions will be kind of like a poll, whatever you guys want us to go over. I think the last one we actually did two because we had really high turnout for both, for two of them, I think. But we'll go over, if we go over Zoom, we will be meeting on Google Meet, which will be fun. But yeah, we'll go over any single question and everything in more depth than you want, and we will definitely be taking it a lot slower. One of the reasons why we go fast here, or I go fast here, is one, we do have the slides to back it up at the end. Two, we do have the video that everyone can watch afterwards. And three, we have, a solid half hour after the presentation slide portion has ended to answer any follow-up questions. And if you want me to go back to any certain part in the slides and explain what I said or click through any of the links, I'd be more than happy to do that.
So basically too, as with being unmuted, to screen share, you have to be made co-host or be allowed to do so by the host, then to screen share, correct?
Correct. There is an option to allow anyone to screen share. I generally don't recommend that because then people can fight for control over screen sharing accidentally.
So
Yes,
when you're the host and you're the creator, then you can just allow that to happen.
Yep. You can make it a free for all if you want.
Okay.
Zoom has a lot, if you're the host, a lot of capability. But the problem, as Tim mentioned, and why we would do it on Google Meet, is you can't see those possibilities because they're hidden. Even when you're sharing your screen, you can't actually see all of the menus that you can use.
And sometimes the way it's displayed to the participants sort of show it on the right and it kind of blocks off the slide sometimes. So I was just wondering about maybe it'll be clearer when we do Google Meet, how to maneuver the, do you know what I mean? On the right side, sometimes even when you minimize all the participants, sometimes there's a slide and it sort of overlays on it. So there's part of it that you can't see.
Yeah, there's, if you hit the minus button, it will kind of shrink it accordion style, but you'll still have that little rectangle
Yeah,
kind of thing.
right, right.
That's one of the benefits of having two monitors is you can just put all that stuff on the left-hand side or the right-hand side and just watch on your other monitor. And I had a question on end-to-end encryption. So an easy way to think of end-to-end encryption is you have a unique identifier and you have two unique identifiers and the other person has two unique identifiers. You share the unique identifiers in a way that allow only you and the person receiving the message to see the message. So if you send a message, it's encrypted by you, you send it to the other person, and then they can decrypt it. So if someone else tries to get the message, it's all they'll see is gibberish because it's encrypted on the way. And the way you do it is actually a fascinating problem where you encrypt it on your side, you send it to them, they encrypt it on their side, they send it to you, you decrypt your portion of it, send it to them, and then they decrypt their portion and then they can see it. So it goes back and forth and allows only the people who can decrypt it to view it.
Wow.
So end-to-end encryption is imagine sending a letter where no one in the world is able to open that letter except for you or the person you're sending it to. So only you two can see it versus, just putting something on a bulletin board and then anyone who walks by can view the message.
Does that apply to photos as well?
It applies to everything. Yep.
'Cause I was surprised when I learned that some photos that I was, I had taken pictures of some documents with my camera and was shocked when I realized it ends up in my photo library. Not just WhatsApp, but I thought it would be private by sending it through WhatsApp and taking it through WhatsApp, but it's not.
No, WhatsApp kind of attaches to your photos on your device, and it will save and store stuff. Does Google Meet allow for screen sharing and chatting? That it does. So if I just go to my Gmail, I don't even need to open Google Meet to start a meeting. I can just go to the bottom left, where it says new meeting, right here. I can click new meeting and bam, I have a meeting that pops up. If you are familiar with Zoom, you can kind of see that this is very much a faster way to start a meeting. But if I want more options, I can go to Google Apps, I can go to Meet, and I can either have two options. I can click new meeting, or I can enter a code or link to join an existing meeting. Now, whenever you start an instant meeting, you will then be able to either copy paste the code and give them to whoever, or within the dialog box, you can send it from your Gmail account. You can also create a meeting for later. This will allow you to copy paste this and start the meeting at a later date.
Any other questions for Tim?
On my screen,
This
Yeah,
is
go ahead,
Kath.
Deb. Sorry,
have a
Deb,
couple of
hold on. Kath, hold on. Deb was speaking. Go ahead, Deb.
my screen's just, I don't know what happened, changed to safe driving mode, where it says microphone is unmuted, your video is stopped. And there's a big round button that says done speaking. I don't know how I got there or what happened.
Safe driving mode?
Yeah,
I have no
So-
idea.
so
Okay.
all those slides that you were showing, like, that's gone.
Interesting.
And at first it said, my microphone was muted and my video was also stopped. And it said, the circle said, tap to speak. And then, so I did that, and then it changed, your microphone is unmuted, your video is stopped.
Mhm.
There's a big round circle now that says done speaking, but the same safe driving mode is at the top. And to the right of that is the leave option. I have
Mhm.
no idea what's
Interesting.
going on. And I have an iPhone.
So you're on your iPhone while you're doing this.
Yes, because I
Okay.
had trouble, I couldn't get on to
Okay.
my computer.
Interesting. It sounds like we need to do a little research. Maybe your iPhone thinks you're in the car.
No, I'm not. Actually, I'm on my,
So if you're from the meeting window, you can swipe right in quotes to enter safe driving mode. And then to exit it, you can swipe left.
oh. That works. So I'm back to, oops.
I guess
I'm
it's
back to
just
you
a
were looking
quick
at an
way
email
to
page.
like turn off your video and audio and turn it back on.
I'm back to what you were showing with Gmail.
Great.
And my mic is off. I mean, my mute is to speak is off, and then start video says it's off. But I'm, oh dear, now I'm seeing a big map.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I came up with.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if you can't see the video, then I guess that
Yeah, it says safe
doesn't
driving
help.
mode in a little box on kind of on. It's different from what I was seeing.
Okay. It sounds like this might be something for tech drop-in so that Tim can actually see the phone and see what's going on. But
I mean, it looks like it's a swipe left,
Left.
swipe right kind of option. I guess I've just never swiped whenever I was in a Zoom meeting on my phone.
Yeah.
so Kath, did you have a question?
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, well, I have a comment and a question, and Joanne was saying about the chats on almost all the Zoom meetings or whatever that I'm getting on, because of the amount of people can be well over 200. You're limited to, they usually shut you down, so you have to put in a question, and sometimes at the end they will open it up for verbal. Tim, I had a question about video chats. I've been doing those since late last year to my group in Washington, D.C., but we can't usually see only maybe one person, and everybody ends up in little, you don't see them, just their initial with a little circle at the bottom of the screens. Is that not opened up like on Zoom where you can see people?
What application are you guys using?
It's a video chat that he sends out to us.
But what?
What platform?
Yeah.
Oh,
Do you know?
don't know. To find that out
Yeah.
then, huh?
So basically, the thing is, in most of these there will be two options, maybe three. But the first one is speaker view. So that is whoever is talking has the big picture, and everyone
Right.
else is really, really tiny. The other option is gallery view, where everyone has the same size picture until
Well,
there's
actually,
more
when
than
you
like
say-
32. And then
when
there
you're
will be like
saying on the
multiple
little,
things.
on the little one, you don't see the person. There'll be a little circle all colored in at the bottom with just the first initial of somebody's name on it.
Yeah.
So I
So,
think we need to figure out what platform you're using. Because it doesn't sound like it's Google Meet or Zoom. So, sorry, I didn't
yeah,
mean to
I mean,
jump in there.
it's gallery versus speaker view.
Right.
There will also be some limitations if you are using this on an iPad or your phone.
That's true.
There
That is
are less options.
I'll try to find out what it is.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. What I think I will do, since we have about oh, half of the people who signed up, I'm going to send out an email to everyone and ask what people would like to learn more about. So expect that in the next, probably this afternoon or tomorrow. So, and Tim, what are you showing us here?
Oh, this is just how to start and join a meeting from
Okay.
Jitsi. It's very similar to Google Meet.
Mhm.
All you do is you go to meet.jit.si, no account needed. You can type in whatever you want, or you can just let it randomly do something. You hit start meeting, type in your name. This is the meeting link, copy, send it to everybody, hit join meeting, and then the meeting is started.
So one last question I have for you, and I don't know that there's an exact answer to this, but a lot of what you've presented, some of them work better for small, intimate meetings, and some of them would work better for larger, like classroom meetings. Can you quickly sort of divide the group?
Yeah, so that is a fantastic question. Basically, Zoom was built for large meetings, so it is very good for large meetings, primarily because of the use of breakout rooms and just support for a virtually unlimited amount of participants. Google has been catching up to that, but unless you have the Google Enterprise or the Google Education, it lacks some of the features that really make a large meeting good. So basically, if you want a super large meeting, Zoom is what you're going to be using, whether you like it or not. If you want kind of a small meeting, then all of the other options will work. So Zoom, Jitsi, Google Meet, and WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, or I guess just Signal and Telegram. FaceTime will work if everyone's a Mac person, but not everyone is. And Jitsi would be number 2 on large quantities of people. For like small meetings, Google Meet, I think, is wonderful, mainly because it's very, very easy to use. And even though it lacks some of the refinement for large meetings that Zoom has, some of the options, theoretically, if you are in a small meeting, you trust everyone, so you don't need that level of control where you can decide who gets to speak and you decide who gets into the meeting in the first place and all that jazz. So Zoom for big meetings, everything else for small.
Great.
Unless you don't like Zoom, and then Jitsi for big meetings. And if you have Teams, just to add a another wrench in it, Teams will work for both as well.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I will send out an email later this afternoon, and I'll let you know what we're going to go deep diving in, depending on what people respond. And I appreciate, Tim, all the information. There's a lot there. The recording, I'll send the recording out as well, so you can all listen to it and go through the slides again. All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.